Hi there, everyone. It is David Meade here. Thank you so much for joining me again for another episode of GrowShow. And I have got a big thank you for you because we've ran the numbers and we now have over 10,000 viewers. And that is only because of all of the great support from all of you telling your friends and your colleagues that this is the only place where you can learn stuff and have a good time while live streaming online as well. So I cannot thank you enough. And I really hope if you enjoy this episode, you'll continue to share it with your friends and with your colleagues and tell them how much great material that we're sharing in every single episode. We're working really hard to bring this together and we could not do it without you. Now, as you know, we are streaming across all of the big platforms. LinkedIn Live happens to be our favorite, so give me a wave if you are coming in from there. But we're also going out live on YouTube, on Periscope, which inexplicably does still exist, on Facebook and even on Twitch because we are down with the kids. But look, without further ado, let's get started with another episode of GrowShow. If you haven't joined us for an episode of GrowShow before, let me introduce myself. My name is David Meade. I'm an international speaker. I work with organizations all across the world on the real science of high performance. And GrowShow is the only live streaming show on the internet that gives you proven science-backed techniques to help you grow your business, grow your team, and grow yourself. And GrowShow is entirely interactive. It is all about you, the live audience. So I want to hear from you throughout this episode in the comment box. If you have feedback, if you have questions or any applications of the material that I'm covering, please don't hesitate to drop me a line because it really is all about your voice. So let's go straight over to the comments straight away. First up, we've got Damien Donnelly. Yes, 10,000 viewers. Thank you so much, Damien. I appreciate the support. We've got Ricky Locke is coming in. Ricky, thanks for joining us. We've got Ivor coming in from Ahahel. Good luck to our American viewers trying to pronounce Ahahel. I can assure you it sounds like a seizure. Jamie is back again. Thank you so much for joining us for another week, Jamie. It is great to see you. And the world's greatest host and MC, Paul Martin, is here as well. Paul, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. And then we've got one of my friends from Free Now, formerly brilliant. My Taxi, I believe it was originally, but I got to know all of the team down there really well at various different events. So Keith, say a big hello to all of the gang. I hope I get to see them at another live event at some point really soon. And finally, Robert McElroy hasn't missed a single episode yet. Robert, I really appreciate it. Please do host a watch party. Why don't you get your friends and family around, share a wee bit of popcorn. Don't go with the goat's cheese popcorn. I tried that recently and it was absolutely rancid. But it is your interactivity that makes this show work. So I want to incentivize your comments. So big news, as you know, at the end of every episode, I select one of the commenters to get some free GrowShow swag. And look at this stuff. Do you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. These are the first time that I've seen our free GrowShow swag, and it is slightly better than I thought it was going to be. It's 3% better than garbage. So if you'd like to win some GrowShow swag, all you need to do is leave a comment of any kind during the episode. Maybe tag in a friend in your business or in your organization who you think might learn something good from GrowShow. I am duty bound to say that this giveaway and competition is in no way affiliated with Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, or any of the platforms that we're streaming on. So if you want to see all of the terms and conditions, then follow that little link that you can see in the banner on your right-hand side. This episode is about the real science of motivation. I am fascinated by what it is that helps our people achieve their best work. And you know, there have been decades of research into what moves the needle on our people's performance from good to great. And what continues to fascinate me is that there is something about the DNA, something about the culture, something about the fabric of high-performing organizations that is different to the rest of us. So my job is to show you how we can use the proven tools and techniques of high performance to create extraordinary motivation in your business, because we now know that carrots and sticks simply don't work. It doesn't matter whether your philosophy is one of these. There is actually real research that proves that these don't really matter. There are three separate experiments that I'm going to show you inside this episode today that all have actionable things you'll be able to apply and employ straight away. And one starts with the ability to build a tower. It was a piece of research originally formed by this handsome, irritatingly handsome gentleman called Peter Skillman. And he came up with a really simple task. What he did was he got groups of individuals from all walks of life and gave them 20 pieces of spaghetti. He gave them some tape, some string, and one regulation size, because there is a regulation behind them, marshmallow. And the task was simple. All the participants needed to do was build the largest possible tower that they could, and the only rule was that the marshmallow has to be on top. The tower should support the weight of the marshmallow so that it can be freestanding. And this individual, Peter, and his team of researchers got people from all walks of life, from all incomes, from all across the world, and even from all ages. Now, the average tower height that they got across all of those groups was around 20 inches. But this is where I want to hear from you, the Grow Show audience, because we're going to focus on these 4 groups: business students, lawyers, CEOs, and kindergartners. I'd like you to let me know inside the comments now, who do you think built consistently better, bigger, taller, and stronger towers? Do you think it's the business students? Do you think it's the lawyers? Do you think it's the CEOs or the kindergartners, who, remember, are only aged from around 4 to 6 years old? Do you think it's the business students who spent 4 years doing their MBA? Maybe it's the lawyers who are the natural negotiators who, frankly, probably charged $800 an hour to just participate in the study. Do you think it's the CEOs who you would think are natural inspirers of their people? Or do you think it's the kindergartners? Or frankly, were they more likely to eat the marshmallow and put the spaghetti up their nose? So let me know inside the comments, who do you think will do better? Business students, lawyers, CEOs, or kindergartners? I think the results might surprise you. Remember, the average height of across all of the groups was around 20 inches, but the business students only managed to get their tower 10 inches tall. A fairly pathetic achievement when you consider that mommy and daddy might have spent tens of thousands on their education. The lawyers did a little better. They got it 15 inches, but they had a fairly grimace and aggressive look on their face as they did it. The CEOs did a reasonably good job. They outperformed both the business students and the lawyers, but they got it to 22 inches. That's a pretty good achievement. If you look into the original research, though, the CEOs did even better when they were assisted by their PAs and their executive assistants. That's not an exaggeration. So a big high five to the PAs and EAs out there. But the team who consistently, in every circumstance, swept the board was the kindergartners. They always outperformed the rest of the groups, and their average was 26 inches. Now, given that that is the average, that means in many cases, 50% of the cases, they got even bigger than that 26. Why was that the case? Because this will surprise many of you. Many of you will not have thought that a kid with no experience, no expertise, probably no proficiency in working with a team, and certainly no proficiency in building professional structures of any kind, why did they do so well? When you look at the original research, you realize that the adults, every time that they had to build the tower, they spent a lot of time brainstorming. They spent a huge amount of effort debating. They strategized a lot, and they negotiated amongst their group. That spent an awful lot of time up. However, when it came to the kids, they just got stuck in. They rolled their sleeves up, they wiped their nose, and they weren't afraid to fail fast. Now, they did fail often, but in that failing, it created a prototyping process that allowed them to learn from their mistakes, but they had fun with it as well. The adults were focusing on the theory. The kids were focusing on the practice. And because they were focusing on just getting stuff done instead of notionalizing and theorizing, they did significantly better. But there's more here that affects the motivation of those particular teams. We know that the adults were not just negotiating building the tower, they were negotiating some personal things as well. They were negotiating their own ego and how it sat along the other participants. They were negotiating their power and their perceived importance in the group. They were negotiating their own status, their pride, and even their fear of failure. No one wants to be the one to suggest a brand new tower design that for some reason doesn't work and means they fail as part of the experiment. However, the kids didn't negotiate any of that stuff. They didn't have decades worth of career baggage to affect them. They didn't have any expectation of how good or bad they would do as part of the experiment. They didn't feel any self-judgment or any judgment from their colleagues who were participating in the study. And they didn't have the risk aversion that we've often built up in our teams and in our organizations organizations. And this really does go to the heart of why they were more motivated to do a better job. Now, if you can build a culture of avoiding this risk aversion, a culture of just prototyping and being ready to fail, motivation in your organization will soar. But not just motivation, it affects your bottom line as well. A study carried out by Harvard over 10 years, so this is not a flash in the pan, proves that net income increases by nearly 800% if you can embed these cultural behaviors into everything that you do. Now, we've got a brand new giveaway this week as part of GrowShow. If you would like to get access to all of the original research that I present, all I need you to do in the comments, type the word fact sheet, and we will send you a link to where you can download all of the evidence. You can read it, share it with your team, and have more opportunity to apply it. Or if you want to get that fact sheet right now, if you don't want to wait, then go to growshow.com and you'll be able to download it there as a PDF. So go ahead and do that for me now, and you'll make sure that you get all of the good stuff for next time. But now it's time for experiment number 2. We've all heard the phrase that it only takes one bad apple to upset the apple cart. But we've never really been able to prove it in evidence terms, and we've never really been able to prove it inside our organizations either. But some clever researchers from the University of New South Wales in Sydney, g'day, set out to test this. What they did was they got real participants to take part in a team task or project. Now, all of them were real participants, except for one, this guy, Nick. Now, Nick was the only one that was an actor. He was not a real participant. He was not a real person taking part in the study. And he had been professionally trained to manifest one of 3 personality types inside the group. He was either to act as a jerk, as a slacker, or as a downer. Now remember, everyone was excited to take part in the study. They were invigorated to take part in this exercise with their new team. But Nick came in, and in one situation, he was a jerk. He was a professional agitator. He was belligerent, he was awkward, he caused trouble, and he interfered unnecessarily. You might recognize this character from some of your current or former colleagues. In the second scenario, he played the role of the slacker. So he didn't deliberately upset anyone, but he didn't take part either. He kind of sat over in the corner and wasn't really part of the co-authorship of the exercise. I'm sure you've seen people like that as well. I call them rhinos, R-H-I-N-O. They are people who are really here in name only. In other words, they're there, but they're not really contributing anything. And the final group, the final role that he played was as the downer. Now, he wasn't awkward, he wasn't a slacker, but he just brought the mood down. He was like the ER in the team or in the organization. No matter how happy and engaged everyone else was, he was just always, oh, bother. When he arrived into the room, he had his arms crossed, his head was heavy, and in some cases, even put his head down on the table and pretended that he was sleeping. Now, in each of these scenarios, the team arrived energized. But slowly but surely, Nick's behavior permeated across the group. His low behavior, his low commitment, his low ambition, and his negativity made it possible and gave permission to everyone else in the group to behave in exactly the same way. And as a consequence, when he did, their performance reduced, their effort reduced, and their outcomes, productivity, and results reduced in every single situation. We've heard for years that it only takes one bad apple, but now we can prove it. It's really true. And this happened in every single situation, except for one. In one group, one of the real participants, called Jonathan, somehow managed to buck the trend. And it knocked the socks of the original researchers. They couldn't really understand how he was doing it, because Jonathan wasn't a big, shouty, noisy leader. He was just quietly and gently responding to Nick every time that Nick had an issue. Anytime Nick came up with some negativity, Jonathan responded with warmth. He moved towards him instead of away from him. He engaged eye contact and made sure that Nick, no matter how disengaged he was, felt like he was part of something. When Nick was being loud and belligerent, complicated and difficult, Jonathan just listened. He gave him time to empty his thoughts, to share his feelings, and then that kind of took the heat out of the situation. When Nick was being apathetic and wasn't really taking part, Jonathan took a brief moment to share his personal ambition and the ambition for the entire group. And this transformed not only the way Nick behaved, but the way everyone else did as well. Now, the important point here is that Jonathan didn't do this with any big flair. He did it quietly. He did it with empathy, and he did it authentically. A lot of times when we hear that we're working with an inspirational person, someone who manages to always get the best out of their team to motivate them to extraordinary levels, we always convince themselves that they're either this Glengarry Glen Ross character who does it aggressively or the inspirational Nelson Mandela. But the truth is, you don't need to have that big theater. You don't need to have these inspirational quotes of any kind. If you want to make a difference in your organization, you have to accept that every single one of us has the ability to rise the tide in our organizations, to rise the tide in our team. And now we can prove this. Just one person's negativity can lower the entire organization's energy, ambition, impact, and results. Now, I really want to say that this is important because he didn't give any big speeches. He didn't have any big manifests. But because he was simply a listener and made everyone feel included, everyone's results fundamentally changed. But the most important point that I want you to take away is that Jonathan was not a leader. He wasn't a supervisor. He wasn't a manager. He didn't have responsibility for the financial or commercial performance of any of his team. Because this is what matters most, I think, about this episode of GrowShow. Motivation is everyone's business. Whether leader is in your title or not, you've got a responsibility to be aware and emotionally intelligent of the people around you. You've also got the opportunity to improve their day and improve their job, and in doing so, improve the business. The person to our left and to our right, whether we are responsible for their results or not, we have a responsibility to try and encourage them to do their best work, to bring themselves, the best version of themselves, to work every single day. It is your responsibility right now, today, when this episode is finished, to try and rise the tide of your team. And you don't need a title of leader to do it. Motivation is within your hands. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you want to get access to all of the research that I'm presenting in this episode, all you need to do is type the word fact sheet in the comments below and we will send it to you straight away. Or if you'd like to get it right now, go to growshow.com and you can download that PDF. It'll give you access to all of the material that I'm presenting here inside this episode so you can share it with your team. We'll also send you a recording of the episode if you do that as well, so you can make sure that everyone in your organization has the opportunity to learn. But before we continue, I need to first of all make an urgent appeal. Here at GrowShow, we're working hard every day and every week to bring you brand new episodes of proven, science-backed tools and techniques that will help you grow your business, grow your team, and grow yourself. But we can only grow GrowShow if you help us grow GrowShow, grow. If we're going to grow GrowShow, we need you to help us grow GrowShow. So please take a moment now in the comments and tag a friend or a colleague, tag someone in your HR department, tag someone that you work with who could learn something, because every episode has something that you can apply and employ straight away. Or even better, please share this video to your feed, whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or any of the other places that we're broadcasting. It really helps us. Every week we're reaching more people and we cannot do it without you. So please help us grow GrowShow. That is the appeal finished. I don't know about you, it's time for a milkshake. The final piece of research that I want to present to you shows you how some really simple changes to the expectations that we set of our team can skyrocket their motivation and performance. And it starts with a really simple experiment. Some researchers decided to take some lucky participants and have them taste milkshakes. This sounds like the best piece of research you've ever participated in. And as a reward, they got $75. I know, shut the front door. But it wasn't all good news. If they participated in the study, they needed to have an IV drip attached to them while they were tasting the milkshakes, and it was constantly taking blood work. The reason the researchers were doing this is they wanted to measure ghrelin. Now, ghrelin is what's called the hunger hormone. Whenever you haven't eaten for a while, ghrelin slowly starts to increase in your system, and when you have a burger or a milkshake, the ghrelin slowly starts to reduce. When it reduces, it makes it, that tells the body that it doesn't need to eat. So ghrelin is a chemical that is created inside the body, inside the brain. And so they wanted to test and see how ghrelin would be affected when they had two different types of milkshake. One was a very healthy one. It was only about 140 calories. However, the second one was 620 calories. The researchers wanted to test what would happen to ghrelin depending on which milkshake that they tasted. And the results were frankly unsurprising. When they had the low-calorie one versus the high-calorie one made the ghrelin reduce by 300%. Now, that shouldn't shock or surprise any of us. Any of you who knows anything about dietary chemistry will know that that's a normal expected thing. However, here's the point. Both of the milkshakes were exactly the same. They were identical. And the tasting sessions happened 1 week apart. So they didn't know that it was exactly the same thing. They had exactly the same sugar, exactly the same salt, and exactly the same caloric income. But what was happening here? Well, believe it or not, the secret behind this milkshake study, for me at least, is at the very heart of what drives motivation for everyone that works around you every single day. Because they expected the high-calorie one to fill them for longer, it simply did. That is the power of our mindset. That is the power of expectation when it comes to motivation, and the power of a great ambition in delivering our work every single day. On the one that was healthy, because they had low expectations for how long it would satisfy them, it simply satisfied them for less long. Now, this is not just psychology, because the ghrelin levels really did adjust inside the body. Now, what that means is, if you think in a motivated and positive way, it doesn't just affect how you see the world, it physically affects the chemistry that you have inside your body. This is very closely linked to a principle called the expectancy theory. And the expectancy theory suggests that when we expect something, we look for the evidence to suggest that it's coming. And it's particularly strong. It's like holding a pendulum, letting it go. We expect it to behave in a certain way. And when it comes to motivating your team, it's exactly the same evidence. If we expect to achieve high performance, if we expect our team to do well, if we expect them to work hard and share it and have conversations about it, it comes out in their results and in their performance in every single thing that they do. So before I sum up, I want to remind you, if you'd like to get a fact sheet with all of the details and evidence and research that we're covering in this session, type the word fact sheet below. If you'd like to get that straight away, log on to www.growshow.com and we will send it to you. It's got links to all of the original research and papers so you can look at this more, and we'll also send you a recording of this particular episode. So how do you apply the material that we've looked at in this episode to motivate your people? Well, I hope that it's obvious, but let's get back to details. Remember the spaghetti marshmallow tower study? The reason that they were so motivated and performed so well is that they became comfortable with failure, comfortable with experimentation. You need to create that same culture inside your organization. And it starts with having conversations. It starts with making them comfortable and engaged enough to know that if something doesn't work well, everything will still be okay. But it's your responsibility to do that. The second thing is, remind yourself that it only takes one bad apple to upset an apple cart, and it's the same with your team as well. So many of my clients in banking, in IT, in the finance sector, when I ask them, tell me how your team is, and they say, oh, we're like the normal team, 80% are great, 10% are good, and another 10% are a complete waste of time, but hey, they're here for a long time, so just let them go. I can assure you that 10% can be deadly for the rest of your organization because it can permeate across the culture. It can affect the energy, the ambition, the commitment, and the results. So you need to attack that bad apple, but do it in a positive and a good way. Find out why that individual or those groups of individuals do not feel engaged. Bring them into a conversation about where you're all going as a team by giving them that co-authorship. It'll fundamentally change the relationship that you have with them and that they have with their job and with their colleagues. And finally, remember the power of expectancy, the power of high expectation and high ambition. The milkshake study, I think, summarizes that perfectly, but I'm sure you're setting expectations deliberately or unintentionally of your team every day. And if you're not really careful about how you set those expectations, it will set the GPS and the sat-nav on your organization in a direction that you may not wish it to go. So, as I mentioned earlier, GrowShow is all about you and all about your comments. So let's take a couple of moments to hear from a few people. Who have we got? Oh, Tommy Goodwin. Tommy and I had dinner in Copenhagen a little while ago. Tommy, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I hope you and the gang are all keeping well. Jamie is saying another brilliant episode. Fail quick and learn from it. You're so right, Jamie. I think that summarizes our industry brilliantly as well. Owen Gretton is saying a healthy one best. Okay, an interesting approach there. We've got lovely Glenn who's tagging in Martin. Glenn and Martin are ex-homies of mine. We've worked together a long time. Damien is saying such a heartfelt appeal. Yes, and I really do need your help, guys, to spread the word. So thank you so much for taking the time to do it. Sarah is telling her friend Amanda Newell to come and watch the show. That's so kind of you, Sarah. I really do appreciate it. Folks, if you've got any questions, now is the time. Ryan is watching on YouTube. Hi, Ryan. Thanks for taking part. He's saying that we have a Nick at work. I bet you do, Ryan. Hey, Ryan, for the fun of it, put their name down in the comments and we'll see if we can find them a new job. Then we have Jeet Rajani, David Jex. Some people are getting tagged there. And my good friend who is here for every episode, Frank Hackney. Frank, a big hello from all of the team here. Kieran is saying that it's so true. And it is great to see some research around this bad apple mentality. I really do think it makes such a big difference. Tons of you are requesting the fact sheet, and I hope that you will use the information. Let's see if there are any more comments there before we go. Let's see. We've got Jonathan Pratt is saying, thanks for another great Grow Show. Jonathan, I really appreciate your feedback. Thank you for coming back for every single episode. And it really is kind people like you who have been good enough to tell your friends and colleagues about it. That's what's allowed us to get bigger every single week. And next week, we've got a brand new episode. In the next episode, we will be looking at persuasive sales secrets. These are the real proven psychological tools that help you get a signature on the bottom line, whether you are a charity trying to raise money, whether you're trying to sell cars, insurance, or anything else. This will be a packed episode. You have my word that you don't want to miss. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any of the episodes, make sure you've clicked the follow button on LinkedIn. Make sure you've clicked subscribe on YouTube. Particularly, tick the little bell, and it means you'll get a buzz on your phone, or as Katie calls it, a tickle, whenever the episode goes live. Click like on Facebook if you'd like to hear from us. And as you know, we love to give away some Grow Show swag every episode. So let's pick someone at random. Now, I'm not going to be looking at the page. I'm going to pick someone at random. And this is our winner, Natalia Hersel. Natalia, congratulations. You have won your choice of a mug or an insulated coffee cup. So if you'd like to send me a direct message on LinkedIn, I will make sure that you get it. Thank you so much. We've also got Howard Lerner's coming in from Boston. Howard, sorry you didn't win the prize, but it's wonderful to have you join us. I really appreciate it. So folks, thank you for joining us as part of Grow Show. We're going to be bringing this to you every single week, and the show is all about you. And if you are hosting a virtual event for your team, over the course of the last few months, I've delivered customized, bespoke training and development masterclasses for all of these businesses for their remote teams who are working from home all across the world. I cannot wait to get back to my live events, but in the meantime, these virtual ones are pretty darn fun as well. So I hope I get to see you all at the next episode. Keep your comments coming in. I'll be going and reply to every single one of them. Thank you so much for helping us grow Grow Show. Thank you so much for coming back every episode, and I'll see you next time on Grow Show.